Hey everybody, this is Rev J with Rev J Rides. We are out riding through the mountains in East Tennessee. I think we'll be in Virginia today. I think we'll be in Kentucky a little bit today. All of those things are fun. But I want you to notice something. Our roads are a little bit wet. We're going through times when it rains a little and then it stops, and then sometimes the sun's been shining and it's been raining in the midst of the sun. It's been kind of different. But what do you do when you ride through the mountains on wet roads? Well, these are damp roads right now, but you'll see we're going to get to some wet roads. It's no fun to be on a slippery slope on a motorcycle. Two wheels doesn't give you as much traction as four. Four tires planted on the ground with a contact patch that's wider to start with is better than two tires with a small, very small contact patch on the road. When you add to that the rain or wet roads like this right here, it gets a little trickier. These motorcycles that we're riding, each one of them, they're all very similar. The one behind me is a trike though, but these mine and the three ahead of me here, they all weigh about 900 pounds. And we won't say what they weigh with the rider too. But that's a lot of weight on a very narrow little two tires with a narrow contact patch on the road, especially when it gets slippery. It reminds me of the fall of man, actually. You know, way back when, Adam and Eve, way back then, the first man and woman, they were in a garden and there was no sin. There was no separation from them and God. They walked with God daily. But there was a serpent that entered into their garden, and that serpent tested Eve. He said, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree of the garden?" Even the way he asked that was a twist from the truth. God didn't say you can't eat of any tree. God had said you can eat of every tree, except for one. Now, why would God do such a thing? Does that make him evil to give thousands of trees, thousands of different kinds of fruits, but say, don't eat of that one? Is that evil? Is that wrong? Not at all. God could have made it the other way around if he wanted to. He's the creator. He could have said, only eat from one, and you can't have the fruit of these other 1,000. He could have done it that way. He's the creator. But he said you can have any fruit except for the fruit of that tree, one tree. Now, to some that makes him seem cruel or something. To me it doesn't. It makes him seem wonderful, awesome. But the problem is, without having the ability to choose, we would be nothing more than, I don't know, robots or pets. It wouldn't actually be out of love if we choose to do what's right. We would be forced to do what's right because everything in front of us is right. There's no choice involved. But God wanted us to reciprocate his love. He loved us and gave us everything good. And along with giving us everything good, he gave us a choice to follow him and his will out of love. But when this serpent said, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Eve, was a little bit tripped up. She was a little confused. She says, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. Well, I don't know that he said you must not touch it. Might have been a good idea not to touch it. She may have heard from her husband, hey, don't even touch that. But that wasn't necessarily God's word. And usually when we start adding somebody else's word into God's word, we are on a slippery slope. And she was. First came the temptation with a little bit of a twist from the truth. Then came her answer, and she added a few words into God's word. But then the serpent said, "You will not surely die." Well, that was a complete twist from the truth. Then he goes on to say, "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." You see, God made the rules up about how to live because he was our creator. When he gave us the Bible, it's like our instruction book on how life should work. He can give us that, an owner's manual, if you will. He's loaned us our bodies. He's loaned us our time on earth, 100 years, 70 years, whatever our time is. And he has the right to say, here's some directions in how you treat this. But Satan twisted the truth completely. You will surely not die. If you go against God's word, if you go against God's will, you will surely die. That's how many people have died in the world. Is it 100%? It is 100%. One rose from the grave, but everybody dies. The original sin of mankind that caused us to fall was when Eve looked at the fruit. She saw that it was good for food and that it was a delight to the eyes. It looked like it was delicious or whatever. And that it was desired to make one wise, as in would make her know the difference in good and evil, like God. Her temptation was that she could be like God. The serpent tempted her. Ironically, that was the original sin, period. The serpent is really Satan in disguise, and he had already tried to be like God. One of the slipperiest slopes of all is when human beings think that we can be like God. We make up what's right and wrong for us ourselves. No, we don't. God is our maker, and he chooses what's right and wrong. And he's revealed that to us. And even when we've sinned, he still reveals to us that we've sinned. As a matter of fact, there in the Garden of Eden, when the first two human beings fell into sin, God called out to him, said, "Adam, where are you?" God knew where he was. He was trying to give Adam and Eve a chance to admit their sin, confess their sin. But they didn't. They just said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. God said, well, who told you that you were naked? So in the end, God knew that they had sinned. But mankind, Adam, he blamed the woman. And the woman blamed the serpent. And the serpent had some fault too, and all of them had a price to pay. But the good news can be found even in the 3rd chapter of Genesis. Because in that 3rd chapter, it's revealed in a foreshadowing kind of a way that there would be one who would come from God to conquer sin, that he would destroy the devil, and he would be a seed of a woman, but doesn't say anything about the seed of a man. Hey, I'd appreciate it if you would hit like, share, and subscribe. If you know of somebody who needs a message of a slippery slope, and the only way to salvation being the Son of God, who he provided in Jesus Christ, share this with them. God bless.